Hi, this is Dan Collymore, and you're listening to the V2 podcast.
Hello and welcome to the V2 Football Podcast. I'm Anthony Kendrick, and joining me this week we've got Richard Hudson.
Good evening.
And we've got Dan Tracey.
Hello there.
You guys both well?
Excellent, cheers.
Yeah, cool. So Richard, yeah, I'm good, thank you. Cheers, Anthony.
Alright, let's start with Champions League review then. So, main game involving English team, we've got Chelsea who lost 2-1 to PSG, Cavani scoring the winner and Ibrahimovic free kick. I suppose they're still in the tie, it's not all over yet.
Yeah, I mean, the away goal obviously is a massive boost for Chelsea. I think they were going to be up against it, especially with Terry also joining Kurt Zouma on the injury list. But I think they gave a good account of themselves. Ivanovic and Cahill did as good as they could and kept Ibrahimovic at bay for most of the game by that deflected free kick. So they're still in the tie. Chelsea's unbeaten record under Chris Hilling's finally gone. But PSG have got the advantage, but all to play for, I think, at Stamford Bridge. What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, I think there's definitely still in it. I think getting an away goal certainly gives the advantage to them, really. Chelsea are notoriously a side that can easily get a one-goal advantage early on and defend that for 80 minutes against any team in Europe. I would put him through this round, even though they should have been taken out in the other night.
I suppose there'll be memories of last year when they got knocked out to PSG when I think it was 2-2 the second leg and it was corners that cost them.
That's right, was it David Luiz come back to haunt them, didn't he?
Yeah, it was Luiz and Silva, I think, both scored from a corner each.
And PSG had 10 men as well, didn't they? Because Zlatan Ibrahimovic was sent off after about half an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right, yeah. So, be interesting.
Wasn't that for absolutely nothing as well?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
It was a bunch of babies or something, I think he called the Chelsea players. But, yeah, it should be a great game, the second leg. Would you guys...
heavy rumours with Zlatan, sort of whilst we're talking about it, that he's sort of hinted that he's on his way to the Premier League next season. Yeah. Well,
I'll bring it up now. I've got a quote actually because he was asked. I've got it. Sky Sports said Ibrahimovic said, "I have another 3 months here, as in PSG, and then what will happen? Big things will happen." They then asked him, "Does that mean you're going to move to England?" He just said, "Let's just say I'm in good shape." So don't know if that's a hint or not.
If Mourinho comes to United, he will be at United.
Yeah, that's the link I saw, and probably the most obvious thing you sort of think where he'd go. Mourinho. Because he won't be going to Manchester City now, will he? Not with Pep there.
No, because he hates him.
Exactly. And Arsenal, I think he's had his run-ins with Wenger about the whole, he doesn't do trials and things like that, so he hasn't got many bridges to come to in England, so I think it would have to be Man United by default almost, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think Ibrahimovic would cut it in the Premier League, or do you think he's past his best?
I think
he's probably 1 year too late. I think he could have come a bit sooner, to be honest. I think he's a bit of a flat track bully in France, isn't he? He'll still do well, but I think we won't quite see him at his best, and you will always think, what if? But he wins trophies wherever he goes, so whoever he does end up playing for in England, if he does come, certainly be a big signing for him.
Yeah, I think he's sort of like Drogba in his twilight years. He still could cut it in the Premier League because of how big and powerful he is. And Ibrahimovic, he's a big lad. He's sort of scrawny a bit, but he knows how to put himself about with a defender and get tussled in with him. I think he'd be perfect for the Premier League. And just his whole attitude it'd be a highlight on Match of the Day every week.
All right,
it certainly won't be dull, will it, if he comes to the Premier League? So.
Let's stick with United then. The Mourinho rumours are continuing then, as you've already mentioned. Do you think that there's still talks going on behind the scenes? Or?
I think it's nailed on now. I think it's as nailed on as Pep to City was for several months.
Yeah, I think they're just sort of biding their time and waiting for the right moment to say the announcement, really. I mean, whether they wait till the end of the season or if Van Gaal's position becomes untenable with these string of results, I don't know. But
tonight won't
yeah, I mean,
all right, let's mention.
It's just a matter of when, really, isn't it? Not a case of if. I think it is when Mourinho comes to United.
Okay, well, I'm sure the pressure will increase on Van Gaal after tonight's result, losing 2-1 at Midtjylland. I suppose they're still not out of the tie, though, despite a poor first leg result for them.
It's pretty dire, though, that you're playing against a team that haven't played a game for 2 months.
That's right.
They finished third in the Danish league last year.
They won it, didn't they?
No, they're champions, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the champions.
Danish league at the moment.
Oh, okay. But could you not argue the fact they've not played for 2 months makes them fresh, and they're able to prepare solely for this, and this is all they've had on their mind for God knows how long.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to look at it.
I'd say more that they're not up to proper competitive match fitness.
Yeah, I'm just offering the other argument. You could say it the other way as well. That's all.
You could if you're Van Gaal.
They would certainly raise their game for tonight, wouldn't they?
Well, to them, it's their cup final.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Well, at the end of the game, they were celebrating. Like I watched the celebrations. They were crazy. Like they'd won the World Cup or something. They were going mental on the. And also, there's the point that they were charging cup final prices, which the United fans all protest about as well.
I was just about to mention that. Fancy paying £71 to watch that tonight. You'd be fuming, wouldn't you?
As well as then the flights, obviously.
I know. Yeah.
Flights in Denmark is not cheap. I think it's about £8 a bite over there.
That's right.
Something you can say for United at the moment, though, they've got a lot of injuries. De Gea's the last player to get injured this in the warm-up today. Rooney's got injured recently. You could build a decent side out of all the injuries United have got.
You can't build a decent one of the ones that's got left, though, it seems.
Well, at the moment, youth players have got quite a lot of chances at the club. Do you think you could argue that Van Gaal's doing the right thing and giving youth loads of chance?
The problem is he's giving the youth players a chance because it's through sort of necessity due to the injuries. But what's been quite apparent with United and their youth team in the last few years is there's been a very much a lack of investment in it. So although he's giving them a chance, are they actually of the quality to come in and stay there? You compare United's youth team to City's youth team, and they're miles apart. I think every single age range from 11 up in United v City in the past year, City have won every single game.
I don't know about the younger teams, but I do know for sure the under-21s, United are top of the league in that.
Richard, can I ask your view on sort of Man United's youth teams and their academy players? Because if you took, maybe it's unfair to say, compare against the golden generation of, Beckham, Bookies, etc., why aren't United getting that even close to that calibre of player through their youth teams anymore? Why has there been such a drop-off in the last, say, 5-6 years? Is it maybe because City...
I think City have just stolen the march on them. You look at City's youth facility, the new complex that they've put together, and I think it's arguably the best in the world now. What they've got there, they've got obviously the pitch for every single Premier League club conditioned, sort of the measurements there, the conditions of the pitch they have down there. Their scouting network around City is miles better than United's. I've mentioned it on the podcast before to the other guys, but my lad's pretty decent. He's had a few clubs having a look at him. Stoke have been recently to come and have a look at him. City, we see them at tournaments and coming along to watch games quite often. Never see anything of United.
Quite saying then?
Yeah, they just don't seem to bother, unless they're very undercover. But most scouts will sort of reveal who they're working for when they come along to tournaments and stuff. And I've never seen a United one.
Why do you think that is then?
I really don't know. I don't know if it's a cost-cutting measure or something, but it's sort of ingrained into United that bringing through the kids. So I just think it's a failing at a higher level. There's something that's gone on that they've just not invested in it since Fergie's been there.
I'll tell you something smaller, actually. It made me think. There was I was at a United under-21 game against Norwich the other week. Last week, actually. A lad called Will Keane scored 5 for United. Anyway, this kid asked his dad, he said, who did we sign that? Who did we get Will Keane from? Who did we buy him off? And the dad said to his son, he must have been about 6 or 7, he said, He said no, he joined United when he was a kid and worked his way up. And the kid was really disappointed. He said that's a bit boring. Shouldn't we be buying players instead? It just made me think. Is that the way? Like, I don't know if that's a general way kids look at it or not, but
I don't know if the distance rule affected United a few years ago, and that City sort of pounced on it better than United, because it used to be before in the UK that you could pick a player from anywhere in the UK, and then they clamped down on it, and you have to be, depends upon the age, but a certain travelling distance away.
90 minutes or something, isn't it?
Yeah, and it decreases in increases dependent upon the age. So it can be quite a bit further the older you get. But I don't know if that was where sort of City decided, let's really go at it in the local area and invest in it. And United just weren't on the boil.
Well, something that's happened this week. Nicky Butt's been named. He's been put in charge of the academy, and there's I should have wrote down the guy's name. There's a guy from Ajax who's come in, who's now the new youth head scout. So it looks like it's all changing there.
Yeah, it certainly seems that they realise that there has been a fault. You wouldn't suddenly bring in like Nicky Butt and have these changes unless there was a problem. So hopefully they will now start to cauterise the wound that is there.
All right, let's move on from United. Let's talk about a few other Champions League games. There was wins for Wolfsburg, Benfica, and Real Madrid in their game against Roma. Some decent wins there. Good goal from Cristiano Ronaldo as well for Madrid.
Yeah, I think it's not a good one, is it?
Sorry?
Yeah, it just adds to his tally, doesn't it? I think Real Madrid was not quite a routine win, but they were comfortable in the end. I think Roma had some decent chances. I remember Zeko hitting the side netting, but I think Roma sort of tried to chase getting that equaliser, and then Madrid hit him on the counter-attack, and Esse got the second, which pretty much, you'd imagine, wraps up the tie for Madrid now, doesn't it? 2-0 going into the Bernabeu. I can't really see Roma getting too much joy there in a few weeks. I think Real Madrid will be pretty much in the quarterfinals, won't they? And,
wasn't that Bale's first win in 8 games against Italian clubs as well?
I don't know.
Not to be honest, I couldn't say either way, but
yeah, I think
if it is.
Before that, they'd drawn 4 and lost 4 against Italian clubs.
It's an interesting start. I don't know. That's interesting to know, actually.
Yeah, so it was a big win for them, but I think Roma were always one that were just making up the numbers this year.
Yeah.
So they scraped through their group. Didn't they get just one win in the group stage?
Yeah, they had, was it Barcelona? It was that good group. It had Barcelona, Leverkusen, and I can't remember who the other one was. Because they went through on the last day. It was a good group.
Yeah. Borisov, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that was a great group, that. It all went down to the wire.
I think, though, that Roma as a club, over the past few years, they brought through quite a few decent players, but all of them kept being snapped up, and I think they've got to the end of the quality coming through now.
Ronaldo's been
They changed managers, didn't they? Messi came back.
Go on, Dan.
Yeah. A couple of their key players are also very much at the tail end of their careers as well now, like Totti and De Rossi.
I was going to say Ronaldo was a bit sulky in his interview this week. He got criticised about his goal record. Pretty angrily responded with asking the reporters to name a player who's scored more than him in the time he's been at Madrid in those 8 seasons I think we're on now. He was pretty angry and stormed out of the press conference.
Well, it was the best way to answer the critics, wasn't it, by scoring a goal? But I think that's just Ronaldo's petulance at times, isn't it? But I think that's what makes him who he is and why he's so good. So it's just.
I have a bit of sympathy with him though, because half the time on his interview they were asking him about the Barcelona players and stuff, and why should he even be going on about that when it's the Champions League interview?
Well, they asked him if he goes out for dinner with Bale and Benzema, because there was a picture of the Barcelona players. They asked him how often he takes them out for dinner, and he said he doesn't. But then he didn't go out for dinner with any of the United lot, and they all got on fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sticking with Italian opponents, let's move on to Spurs then. Played Fiorentina and drew tonight. I suppose that's a decent result for you, Dan.
Yeah, on the balance of play, I think draw just about right. Spurs looked comfortable in the first half, getting the nose in front thanks to a Nacer Chadli penalty. mean, the first half an hour, Fiorentina didn't really offer anything. Michel Vorm had nothing to do, in all fairness, and the game itself wasn't too exciting. The main talking point from the first half was Dele Alli should have probably been sent off. He was a bit naughty. Ball rolled out for a corner, and he decided to kick the Fiorentina player on the floor. The referee did see it and gave him a yellow, so Ali was quite lucky not to be sent off for half time. And then the game changed with Fiorentina's equaliser. It was a speculative effort from Bernardeschi from outside the box, and it's deflected off of Ryan Mason's toe. Quite a good goal, to be honest. It's then flipped over Michel Vorm, hit the bar, gone in. So that levelled things up. And then after the equaliser, Fiorentina sort of came alive. If anyone was to get a second, it would have most probably been them. But once Eric Dyer came off the bench, he sort of took the sting out of the game, shored up the back line. So honours even, and I think with Tottenham's away goal, they're in the driving seat, but still could be anyone's tie in a few weeks' time.
Could go either way. You fancy? Would you have taken it before the game?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if someone had said sort of 1-0 before the away goal, then I think you'd take that. And I think on balance of play, I think a draw is the fair result. Both teams had their sort of chances. I remember Son had a goal disallowed correctly for offside straight after the break with a header, so there could have been a sort of chance for Spurs to get a second, but once Fiorentina got their equaliser, it took the wind out of Spurs as well. So, yeah, honours even, I think is fair enough.
All right.
As it's now with the winner of the Europa Cup, then gets into the Champions League the following year, is it then the case that if a club also makes it into the Champions League slots through their league, does the place get knocked down the league? So would the
no, it wouldn't.
Club?
No, it wouldn't get knocked down. So it's not like a top 5 situation. Spurs got to.
As far as I'm aware, there's been a bonus slot allocated.
Might be in Champions League. Oh, well.
No, unless you were to win the Europa League itself, you wouldn't benefit from, say, Spurs doing the double of the Premier League and the Europa League.
But it's got a sorry state of affairs when you're hoping for that.
No, as far as I'm aware, it's literally just winning the Europa League because it's a bonus spot that's been allocated for that.
Yeah, that's right.
Just moving on. I watched.
But the place has to go to someone then, doesn't it?
It'll be through qualifying, and that one team might have to do an extra qualifier or something like that. I would have thought.
Yeah, they'll just shift everyone up a level, won't they? So the draws will be readjusted at the qualifying stages. They won't just sort of give it out randomly or anything like that. So
I watched Dortmund beat Porto 2-0. It was a decent game. It was a really good game between two, decent European sides. Also, currently at the time of recording, Valencia are 5-0 up against Rapid Vienna. Going well for them at the moment.
5?
Yeah, it's 5. Well, it's half time now. It's 5-0 to Valencia. So that assistant manager, as Richard said, that Gary Neville's brought in, has obviously done the trick.
I think everybody will just saying it's him that's done that now as well, won't they?
Be interesting to know what the score is when the time, by the time this podcast goes out. Will it be 10 or something?
It's 0-0 in the Liverpool game at the time of recording as well. So
yeah, I was just going to say. Yeah. So 0-0. So yeah, can't really comment on that as we're not. Not seeing it.
Well, I've got it on my tablet. I'm sort of watching it as a sort of fleeting glances, but nothing's really happened of note. It's sort of Coutinho had a chance after about 10 minutes and weakly shot straight to goal. But really been the most exciting of games.
All right. Something else didn't really sort of relevant to United as well. Rooney's injury, which was announced yesterday. It was interesting to see Stuart Pearce's reaction to it on Sky Sports. He said that he thought it was a real bonus. Said it'll freshen him up for the summer and it gives Roy Hodgson the chance to look at the other players. Do you think Wayne Rooney's injury could be good for England?
I think it depends on if he is actually then fully fit come the summer, because he had a similar sort of length of injury and came back for one of the other major tournaments and still just wasn't right come the tournament then.
Oh, was it Euro 2008? I think it was. It was his metatarsal, wasn't it? Oh yeah, World Cup. Yeah, sorry, yeah. But I suppose in the front.
So, I don't think
it tends to happen before every major tournament.
Well, he's expected to be out for 6 weeks, so that'll take him to the end of March.
Which you should think that he should be up to full fitness by the time of the championships come round. But it's Rooney, isn't he? He's a player that does take a while to recover, mainly because he spends 6 weeks eating pies.
I think Richard's right in the case that it might be good from a point of view that Rooney's rested, but it's no good to England if he's an injury down and it's the will he won't he to start the first group game and we go through the whole circus again at another major tournament. So you almost need a sort of situation where he's either ruled out completely and then it gives Hodgson, he's forced to then pick other strikers, or he's actually, could be a rarity, going into a tournament. So we need either or really. We don't want that sort of halfway house because then that doesn't suit anyone, does it?
All right, let's look at Rooney then. Would you have him as a guaranteed first team starter in the Euros?
God, I'll let you go first, Dan.
I think at the moment, I would because he's scored so many goals for England. I think you can't just necessarily just drop him straight away. I know he's done hardly anywhere sort of worthy of a call up on his club form alone, but an England captain, the record goal scorer, I think I would start him straight away because I don't think that Jamie Vardy's quite at that international level, and I know you don't get there without playing games, so it's a bit of a sort of conundrum in itself. But certainly for the first game, I would go Rooney and Kane, and depending on results thereafter, look at freshening the lineup. So I'm going to be pro Rooney. Quite rare on that, but I would in this case. Yes, I'd take him and play him.
Are you pro Rooney as well, Richard?
I am on this one. Yeah, he's basically the guy that's been there and done it all. You have to take someone that of his proven quality. Although he's struggled at times at the major tournaments, I think it has been a lot of it because he's just not been at his peak fitness come these tournaments, and just hopefully he will be this time round. But he certainly has probably got the most pressure on him that he's ever had at a major tournament, with the strikers knocking on his door.
Could I be critical and say though that Hodgson should be picking the players who have the best, form going into the championship?
Well, he's got decent form coming up to his injury. He's, since the turn of the year, he's got 5 goals since the beginning of January in 7 games. He's got, I think it showed on Sky Sports at lunchtime that his chance rate, his number of chances, was the highest in the Premier League.
Yeah. Oh, well, Dan said about Rooney and Kane being the 2 strikers he'd play. Would you play those 2 as well, or would you play a different 2 up front, or 1 up front, or what would you do?
I don't know if... I think he works better when he does have somebody with him up front, but I don't know if either Kane or Vardy would be the right player with him.
Then what would you do?
That's the problem. Would you put Welbeck in that position with him if he's fit? Because again, Welbeck at club level is always a bit flaky, but he does the job for England. You don't get any bad games out of Welbeck when he puts his international shirt on.
That is true, but you'd also wonder about his fitness. Really, he's going to have to sort of play quite often between now and the season.
Have to prove himself.
Well, this is the thing now, because Welbeck and Sturridge both come back from injury at the weekend and both scoring at the weekend. It looks like, it's going to be a serious battle to get into the England lineup, and, just in the 23, because Hodgson generally takes 4 strikers to a tournament, and it's, there's a lot of players out there, and it's difficult to make a judgment.
Sturridge would be the one for me that wouldn't make the cut.
Me too.
All right, so let's
simply.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, mate, because like Richard said, Welbeck, he seems to turn it on for England, doesn't he? I still think Sturridge hasn't, he's only coming back now, and I suppose Welbeck has also played so few games as well, but I think Welbeck's England form will just get in the nod over Sturridge.
All right,
you could make a case for either, but I think Welbeck will get it. But then, again, it's all about who can stay fit up to the end of the season and who gets enough game time to get him into the squad.
All right, so presuming we take 4 strikers, Rooney's obviously the one you've got. If you guys will both pick Welbeck, I presume Kane and Vardy are the other 2.
I think Kane and Vardy have to be in there for their form this season.
Would you have Walcott as well, or?
Yeah, likewise.
would you have Theo Walcott in the squad as well? I know he's maybe a midfielder, maybe not, but would he be on the plane?
I would, for his versatility, the fact he could play a few positions. I think you need that in tournament football, don't you? Not just players who can play in one position. I think Walcott could play either through the middle or out wide, so I think he'd get the nod and be certainly in the 23 for me.
That's it. You could easily have like Walcott and Welbeck on the flanks, or even Sturridge on the flanks if you went with Sturridge over Welbeck, and a one striker. You could have the thought of something like Walcott and Jamie Varney as a strike options, go counter attack and just absolutely blitz on with speed the opposition.
There's a few left field options you could pick as well, like Andy Carroll, Jermaine Defoe, Charlie Austin. Are they not going to get anywhere near the lineup? Do you think near the side?
What about Troy Deeney?
And Troy Deeney's a good shout as well. Are they? Do you think any of them have got a chance of getting anywhere near the plane?
Troy Deeney.
I think there's too many people in his way at the moment for Troy Deeney to get a sniff in. He probably deserves it, but you've got the options of the guys that have already been proven at international coming back, and then the guys that have probably been better this season, even though he's been very good. So unfortunately,
to be honest, it's been quite a rare position. We've actually got a range of options. Usually, it's the same 3 or 4 names that pick themselves, but it's actually, I suppose, a selection headache, which is a rare problem for Hodgson. But I think you're right about Troy Deeney. He's sort of gone a little bit quiet in the last few weeks. At the start of the season, it was like, oh, wow, like he's welcome to the Premier League and all that. But he hasn't quite got to the levels of Kane and Vardy, so they're obviously going to be in the queue in front of him. And then, like you say, you've got the seasoned international. So I think, there'd have to be quite a few injuries for him to get into the 23. So I think he'll miss out, unfortunately.
What about
this season?
Sorry, just one more.
But when you do have the likes of Rooney, Sturridge, and Welbeck, then it could be very likely that all 3 are injured anyway. They could get that.
That is true.
One more name I just want to mention briefly, Andy Carroll. Do you think he's going to get anywhere near? He could be a good, completely different option to have.
I do like him as an option for England because he's your old style sort of 1970s English striker that often the continental sides just don't know how to deal with.
That's the thing.
He plays one game and he's out for another 5.
But I mean, he'd scare the life out of a lot of teams. Seeing him coming on the pitch as a sub or something, as an impact sub. If you've got a corner with a couple of minutes left, you want someone in the box. Surely he's the man you want.
Yeah, I do like him as a different option. I don't think he'll be on the plane.
Yeah, like you're saying today, I think it's just a bit too left field. I mean, when was the last time he featured in an England squad under Hodgson? I mean, I remember him scoring in Euro 2012, but he's been nowhere near the fringe of the England squad as of late. So I don't think it's going to be him on the plane this summer. And also, I think, do England really want to get back into that, throwing into the mix to kind of football? I know it's good to have a plan B and all that, but you get lazy then because you've got that sort of outlet, and then all the football, that's all it is, just lumped up, and I just lumped up into the box, and I just think you sort of want to get away from that, and it's sort of almost regressing as a national side. So I think it's probably best if Andy stays at home this summer.
All right, let's a couple of other players who sort of coming back from injury might be on the plane. There's Jordan Henderson, who's been injured all season. He's been playing the last couple. He's playing tonight, I believe. Jack Wilshere as well, who's had all his problems. Do you think either of them will be seen in the squad?
I think possibly. I think Henderson was more than likely, and I think Wilshere he's a very good player, but again, it's all down to fitness. There's so many sort of ifs and buts in the England squad at the moment. You think, well, he could go if he's fit, and he could go if he's fit. So we don't really know out of, say, 35, 40 players, who's actually going to be fit and ready come the summer. England doesn't really have any sort of world-class players anymore, does it? So if you were then to say the level down, you put Jack Wilshere in that probable band if he was fit. So I put a question mark next to Wilshere. Because then the centre midfield area is quite congested. Because what about Dele Alli or Eric Dyer and people like that? So again, there's a whole gluttony of midfielders to choose from. So again, it's another selection headache for Hodgson. But fitness, yes, they get in, but they've got to prove the fitness, haven't they?
Yeah. Luke Shaw's another one who needs to prove his fitness.
The other sort of big nations have the level of injuries to their international players that the England team seem to have.
Well, Klopp doesn't think so.
You look through the sort of the players that you'd want in the England team, and so many are just so injury prone constantly. Wilshere's and your Theo Walcotts and your Daniel Sturridges. They're broken men.
Well, Klopp seems to think we need the winter break, though. It's a necessity, but I don't know if that's, because he's grown up always having it, in his country, or whether it's a thing that actually does matter. Going off topic a bit about the winter break, but it might be something. It could be the way they're coached as well, the way they're brought up. Is that something to be looked at?
Is it the?
I think the winter break's a bit of I think the winter break's a bit of an easy excuse, really, because we don't have it. And people put two and two together and think, oh well, players must be tired because there is no winter break. But I think you've got to think of the demands of the Premier League itself. Is there too many games? Like the League Cup doesn't help. So if you feel like a Liverpool player, for example, you're in the League Cup, you've got the Europa League. There's a lot of football come this point of the season, and then it's always to the detriment of the national team. So you can make a case for the winter break. Whether it will come in, I don't know, because Premier League teams are going to be sort of pushing for further advancement in Europe, and if it affects the coefficient because they keep losing, there's many different facets to the argument. It's all sort of interlinked, really. You need good players to be fit for the England team, and but they also need to be good for the Premier League. And I don't think it's the Premier League's job to necessarily help the national team. So there's a bit of a disconnect there, and I think they're all going to have to sort of get around the table and sort of work out what's best for them, because at the moment it's not the solution. Well, it's not working, is it? England's teams in Europe are underperforming.
So let's move on to the Premier League, the title race. Paul Merson thinks Spurs are favourites now because they beat City. Do you think that's a fair title for them?
I wouldn't quite say favourites. I think Arsenal's still the favourites, and the bookies odds reflect that at the moment. But I think with Spurs' performance against Manchester City on Sunday, there's absolutely no reason why they can't go and win the league. It's just going to be a case of squad management now between now and the end of the season, especially with Tottenham at the moment in free competition. So it's the North London derby, which is going to be a huge game. It's not going to decide the league, obviously. There's still so many games to go, but it's certainly going to sort of decide. Well, not decide, but it's certainly going to put one team closer to the title
It'll be a
than the other. But it's still anyone's title race, isn't it?
Yeah, I think City now. You could argue they're out of it, or it has been argued by several people. But then they're only 6 points off the top.
I wouldn't rule that just yet. I mean, it's only 6 points, and there's still 12 games to go. And with City's squad, you would imagine that they can quite easily eat into that sort of gap and get back into the mix. But they're certainly 4 favourites as it stands. But I wouldn't rule them out just yet.
No, can't rule anyone out. But looking at the other game as well, Arsenal beating Leicester in the last minute like they did, I think that was a really important game for them to win.
It was a huge game, wasn't it? I mean, at half-time, Leicester are 8 points clear of them, and they're in the box seat, aren't they? They've got a huge advantage, but the sending off of Danny Simpson changes the game, and it was harsh on Leicester because it's bad game management from Vasilevsky, really. Well, you don't need to make that foul in the 94th minute. The game is pretty much fizzing out at that point, and by giving away that free kick, you've given Arsenal one last chance, and they've taken it, and it's a massive, massive win for Arsenal. Well, and also, the manner of the defeat for Leicester, will they sort of drop off now? How do they bounce back from this? This is going to be a key sort of couple of... I know they don't play this week, they'll play next weekend, but it's going to be a massive game for them, because if they get in a little sort of spin of not winning in, say, 2-3 games, it's going to start to slip away from them. So, yeah, massive win for Arsenal.
I think mentally as well, like they get criticised most years. They've not got the mental strength to win the title. They'll mess it up in the end. They'll bottle it. I think this could be a big win to really, make them mentally stronger, to make them believe that they can get them big wins, which they need.
Most people saying Arsenal, I can understand, because they've perhaps got a few more sort of been there and done it players within the ranks when you got like Ozil and Sanchez in there. I would not bet any money on the winner of the Premier League though right now.
Yeah, we're certainly going to do them no harm. I think you're right. People question Arsenal's character and think they're weak, they're soft and mentally fragile, and Wenger always makes the same mistakes at this time of the season. But, I mean, this is as good a chance as any that Arsenal are going to get to win the league. Dare I say, it might be Arsene Wenger's last ever chance to win the league, because you don't know how many years he's going to be around at Arsenal, and with Pep Guardiola coming to Man City and maybe Mourinho at Man United in the summer, you think, is this the chance for Arsenal? So, who knows?
It could be. If I were to ask you now, then who's going to win the Premier League, or who do you think are most likely to win the Premier League? What would you say?
I think Arsenal, because they've got an easier running, haven't they? And their last 3 games, I know they've got Man City as the penultimate game, but they've got almost dead rubbers against Norwich and Aston Villa. So you'd think they'd get 6 points out of 9. But again, you can't really rule out Spurs. I think the North London derby is just gonna tip the balance one way or another. Mm-hmm. I think if Spurs can win that game, then they could almost be favourites from that point onwards. But I think Spurs fans are careful of not trying to talk about, this is the power shift and this is the time we're finally above Arsenal, because we've been stung by it so many times. So I think we're almost trying to downplay the position we're in. It's almost like you still can't actually get over the fact we're second, and it's just like, wow. But my heart says Tottenham, but my head says Arsenal.
Talking about the run-ins, though, you say Leicester have got a pretty easy run-in until from now until the final 3 games. There's no big teams or anything, but then their last 3 games are United, Chelsea, and Everton. Not in that order, I don't think, but yeah, those 3 games, for Leicester, that could really kill them off if they've not got the title by then.
That's right. I think the thing that Leicester also have in their favour is they've got so few games playing in comparison with the other clubs, because with the other 3 European commitments and the Cup for Tottenham and all 3 in the FA Cup as well, they could be. I mean, I heard on the Tottenham game earlier, they could be playing them up to 25 games between now and the end of the season, whereas Leicester are only going to play 12. So that's double the foot. So that's a massive boost for Leicester. They can just go sort of all guns blazing each week and not have to worry too much about the recovery, whereas Tottenham are not a threadbare squad, but like I say, it's all going to be down to squad management and how you rotate, especially the attacking unit and that sort of fluid front 4, because I know Chadley's chipped him with some goals, but Harry Kane, I must admit, he looked knackered on Sunday after that 70 minutes. It just looked like just had nothing left in him, and I think rest would certainly suit him now. It's a bit frustrating that he came on against Fiorentina. Didn't really need to come on, to be honest, but I think Poch knows sort of his players more than we do, so if he thinks he can play, then so be it. But yes, you can't rule Leicester out, certainly just because of the lack of football they're going to play compared to the other 3.
Well, you talk about injuries as well. I read a study that said I think Leicester have the 3rd fewest injuries of all the Premier League teams. I can't remember who the other 2 were. It weren't 2 decent teams. It was 2 lower down teams. But I guess that's really made a difference to them. They've pretty much played the same 11 or the same, few players the whole season.
Yeah, I mean the nucleus of their team has not changed all season, and when you've got that cohesion playing week in week out, it's so much easier to get results, isn't it? Because everyone knows their job and what they're doing and who plays with who. So I wouldn't say they've been lucky not getting injuries, but it's helped them, hasn't it?
It has, it really has. And a good manager as well, Ranieri, who's been, especially in his media interviews, he's been excellent all season and downplaying everything and trying to be, he's very coy about everything, and it's great to see him. He seems to handle the media really well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes with experience, isn't it? He's a very seasoned manager. He knows how the game works off the pitch and on the pitch. So, and it's a pleasure to hear, really. It's very entertaining, and I think a lot of neutrals are certainly backing Leicester, not just because it's a different team and it is like the story of Leicester, but also because of Claudio Ranieri. He's a very nice guy, isn't he? And I think people wouldn't begrudge him winning a league title when he came. Yeah,
it's not. Well, I remember when he was appointed.
Quite close at Chelsea and unceremoniously second.
I remember when he was appointed at Leicester at the start of the season. It was all doom and gloom, saying it was a crazy appointment, but obviously he's proved them all wrong.
I'll have to hold my hands up because I thought it was a terrible appointment. I thought Leicester were going down this season. So what do I know? But yeah, he's put a lot of egg on a lot of faces this season. So credit to him.
He has. All right, let's move on. You did an interview, didn't you, with Chris Lappin this week?
That's right. Yeah.
Do you wanna briefly tell the listeners what that was about?
Yeah, it was an interview with Saul Isaacson Hurst. He's a academy coach with Chelsea. Also did some work with Tottenham over a 6-year spell, and it was just an interview regarding not so much in what he does at Chelsea, but sort of his coaching backgrounds, his sort of ethos on the game, and also he does a personal coaching service, so it's to promote that and sort of the day-to-day running of that, and how players can come to him from a background of sort of 14, 15 years old who are maybe looking for trials or have got a trial with a Premier League club coming up soon, and they can speak to Saul and get the tailored coaching they'll need to get to that level of getting a trial or getting to a Premier League club. So it was a very, very interesting chat.
Yeah,
Saul learned a lot.
You can check that out on our SoundCloud, and check that out. You can follow us at V2 Football on Twitter. You can check out our Facebook page. You can follow Dan. It's Dan Tracey 1983. I've been Anthony Kendrick. It's good night from me and good night from Dan. And
Good night.
Also good night from Hero as well.
Hello, this is Bianca Westwood from Gillette Soccer Saturday on Sky Sports, and you are listening to the V2 Football Podcast.